We're talking with Josh Snead and Robert Clay of the SEC Short. Just some great videos highlighting the week in the SEC in football. If you're a college football fan, definitely check them out all over social media. They are just some great videos. So, I mean, Josh, Robert, I got to ask, obviously game of the century comes down, LSU, Alabama. LSU goes into Tuscaloosa and wins. Now, they were helped out, at least in Alabama's case, with Penn State losing to Minnesota. So now at least College Football Playoff Committee comes out their second batch of rankings tonight. Do you guys think Alabama stays in the top four, or if not, is Georgia the team that slides up, at least for this week, to that top or at least that final playoff spot?
Alabama will absolutely be four because, of course, they will, and they're going to win out, and they will make the college football playoff because that's just what always happens. Everything works out in their favor. It's so annoying, and I hate it. So that's why it will absolutely happen.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. Alabama deserves to be in the playoff. They're obviously probably the second best team in the country. No, I don't know. I think they'll be number 4 tonight, but I don't know how long they'll hang on to it. Once teams start, there are a few teams that if they win their conference, they could, easily jump Alabama. So, they can hang on to it for now, but we'll see how it turns out when the conference stuff starts.
It's hilarious watching Alabama fans right now doing the mental math on what it would take to get them in. I mean, you're talking it's hilarious because if they don't go to the playoff, then this entire season has been a total wash. Right. They're so miserable, which is kind of funny because it's like you guys lost one game. Relax. But, no, they would be so miserable, which, would be kind of funny, actually.
So I guess they have to be the biggest Auburn fans this weekend, right? I know that pains, especially you, Josh, to root for the Tigers. But, I mean, they need Auburn to win, right? At least to give themselves the best win possible.
And it's so hard to pull for Auburn because there's really not much there to hold on to. Their coach is a rube, and their quarterback is terrible. But you got to do what you got to do to support your team. So I'll be pulling for Auburn this week.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
So Josh Snead, Robert Clay of SEC Short. So guys, I mean, obviously a lot of good in the SEC. There's also some bad, and the bad is Arkansas. So I'm just wondering, I guess, from a fan perspective, from you guys watch them, is there just apathy out there watching this Razorbacks team? I mean, they were Chad Morris, obviously safe to say, was, to put it nicely, a disaster. What is next for Arkansas? Can they come out of this black hole? Because not only do they not win an SEC game in his tenure, I mean, they were barely beating teams like Portland State. They had San Jose State come into that building and win. What is the vibe over there in Arkansas? Can they turn this thing around with whoever they hire? And what coach in your mind would even want to take that job right now?
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday on our podcast. But we have this saying down here called "bless your heart," and when someone's so pathetic,
I know,
bless your heart.
I know, that's
I think that's kind of everyone else's attitude towards Arkansas. But I think for their own well-being, I don't know. I guess you go after a name so you can compete in recruiting, but I don't know. I don't know who would want that job.
I think the top candidate right now actually is Gus Malzahn. I think, and I don't think Auburn will roll out the wheelbarrow of money again for him. But Western Kentucky is a pretty talented team. They got a lot going for them, so no shame in losing to them by 30 points in your own backyard. I mean, it's talent has no conference affiliation.
Jen, Josh Snead, Robert Clay. So, guys, obviously, again, LSU goes to Tuscaloosa and wins. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion, I think, in a lot of eyes of college football fans that LSU will at least make their way to the SEC championship game where, again, they probably would face Georgia. So you both think Alabama will stay in the playoff for tonight. Now let's just say, you guys are on the committee year end. Do you see how many teams? Does the SEC get one team, two teams? Can Georgia, do you think Georgia has a chance to beat LSU in the SEC title game, which probably get both Georgia and LSU in? End of the day, from where we are right now, again, obviously it's tough to project out with college football just being so fickle as it is, but in your heart of hearts, do you believe SEC gets two teams in the playoff again this year?
I think, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of SEC fee, which I think actually plays in a little bit to it. I think obviously LSU is probably going to be in, even if they lose the game. I mean, they're going to be in for sure. Georgia, I think Georgia it'll be fascinating to see how they play against Auburn. Personally, I'm an Auburn fan, and I think we're going to get just destroyed by them. I'm not feeling very great this season, guys. I don't know. The offense is so bad. And then with Alabama, it's just. It's so hard. I would have been ultra confident last week in saying no, but then Penn State lays an egg, which no one saw that coming. I mean, come on. Yeah. So college football is so weird.
Yeah.
Anybody, Georgia's going to lose to, I don't even know who they play, Georgia Tech or something. Like, it'll be crazy.
Mm-hmm. So you said in this scenario, we're on the committee.
Yes. If
you
were the committee members.
I think you need to establish that. That needs to be decided right now, that you guys are going to create your own committee and that you'll make the decision. So this is you guys making the decisions right now.
If I'm on the committee, I expand it to 6 teams and I put 5 SEC teams and Ohio State.
Okay.
All right, so what are the 5 teams
the
then?
Pac-12 is garbage. The Big 12 is garbage.
Absolutely.
And then Ohio State's pretty good. And
no
I think
Clemson then, huh? In your committee? In your rankings, no Clemson?
Yeah, just because, we need to get some sort of revenge situation on them. So,
okay. So Clemson, Ohio State, and 4 SEC teams if you were on the committee making the college football playoff.
Yeah, that's when you say it back to me, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it does. It's funny because you have this season, I think that's why they left Clemson out, because you have essentially them being escorted into the college football playoff because they're national champions and because they play in a conference that women and children first in the ACC. I think that there needs to be some kind of a factor where you can have these supposed Big 5 conferences, because essentially you have the SEC and everyone else. The Big 10, the Big 12, the Pac-12, or it used to be Pac-10. I mean, I can't keep up now with all the different teams. For crying out loud, Rutgers is in the Big 10. I just think that you have all the other conferences trying to catch up. Everybody's kind of jealous of the fact that you have all these national champions coming out of the SEC. So they have a lot to on their side as far as history and as far as the fact that even if a team might lose one game and have it against the same thing with a Big Ten team, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. How would you do it as far as the making the regular season schedule a little bit more balanced so that you cannot use this argument about, well, you come from a weak conference, or that Clemson would have to play an Ohio State on a road, or even a Texas on a road like LSU did, or something like that? How would you do it?
9-game conference schedule minimum. You got to do it. Got to go to it. But no one's going to because they're scared. They're scared of. They like their little non-conference games. They like their Western Kentucky games. Well, not anymore. They don't like those games anymore. But yeah. So I think I love the fact that these big teams are scheduled, like Georgia and Ohio State. They're going to play in like the year 3000, but at least they're scheduling the games out. So that's good to see. You had some great LSU, Texas. You got Florida State playing some big ones. So I think teams were slowly making their way towards, they realize if you play a good team and lose, it's not being held against you as much as if you just win and get, blow out, Portland State. So I think that's good to see, and I wish that more people would do it. In the SEC, though, it's ever since they expanded to 14, you have a lot of rivalries that just don't happen anymore. Like Auburn, Florida used to play every year. It used to be some of the greatest games ever. This is the first time they played since 2007, or at least they've played once since 2007. So they never play each other anymore. So it's sort of a downside to, the conference expansion. So if you go to 9, I think you can get more teams in. But again, I think Nick Saban is the only one that wants to do it. So it's not going to happen on principle.
But the other thing that annoys me about the SEC schedule is you obviously you have to play your division every year, okay? And then you have 2 teams you play from the other division. Now you have one common opponent from the other division, which if you're Alabama, or if you're South Carolina and you're playing Arkansas every year, that's not bad. But if you're Tennessee and you have to play Alabama every year, that's not good. So I think that in itself is unfair. Auburn has got to play Georgia every year. LSU has got to play Florida every year. So that's automatically another tough game on the schedule. Then they rotate the other one game. It doesn't make any sense why they would do that, why they wouldn't just make both games against the other division a rotating basis so everyone could play everyone else every 4 or 5 years. And what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think because, in that case you lose your rivalry. I think adding a game makes more sense.
Okay.
I think it's something they left in for fans because you don't it means a lot to fans to go to that rivalry game, and and I think it's for the players too. It's a big deal. You think that's easy for us? It's not. It's actually it is. It's very easy. Tennessee's terrible, and so we kind of got lucked out in that situation. But they could get good again in the next 5 or 6 years.
That could happen. Yeah, and monkeys could. No, they can. I just think that if you there's a natural, like I know my ex-wife was a South Carolina grad, okay? So there were some years in 2011, 2012 when South Carolina, they manhandled Georgia. And then they're playing tougher teams in the West, and Georgia's playing, Auburn in a down year, or they're playing Ole Miss, and then South Carolina's got to play LSU. And so I think that inherently when you have such competition among your division teams in the best conference in college football, do I need to say that again, or is that enough? The best.
AAC is really coming on strong now.
Yeah, I could with what UConn and some of those teams, I guess. But I just think that in itself creates a little bit of an unfair advantage to one of the other teams. You had Georgia in 2011, 2012, 7-1 and winning their division, but yet they lost both times to South Carolina pretty bad. And I think that penalizes one team or another. That's the only thing that disappoints me about the scheduling. Is if it's going to be like that, where you have to play your division teams, and the fact that Texas A&M and Missouri got invited into the SEC is another problem. That is something that I don't like. But I think that if that's going to be the case, there needs to be a more consistent way. So it's not so unfair on years where you have the teams that normally are good aren't good, and then you're waiting for another one of those SEC teams, SEC West teams, finally to rise up, and it just never seems to happen.
Yeah, it's weird how it happens. I mean, like you look at Florida, Florida LSU this year was this huge game, CBS 2:30 game, and then, or was that the 8:00 game? It doesn't matter. And then but like 4 years ago, LSU Florida, everybody's giving LSU a bunch of grief for playing a terrible Florida team. So it's very cyclical. I think one team's terrible one year and then you have a good year. So I think there's a couple of teams that have had pretty consistent success, but Alabama has gotten to have Tennessee, which is probably the most consistently awful team the past 10 years. So that's pretty nice for them. But it's interesting to see kind of all the teams try to rise up. Like you have LSU now, you have Georgia last year trying to catch the Nick Saban process approach. So they're up in their game. They're putting way more money into recruiting. And Auburn's got to play both of them, so it's great.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. It's great to see. And then our coach is going to go to Arkansas, and we'll be back to square one. So it's all great.